Are you happy? What about you? Of course you are. Those are little smiley faces I use to do some censoring on certain images I make that I have. That Instagram seems to feel are dangerous. Somehow, I don't know how that works. How is a little picture dangerous? Look at my hand. It's almost clean. My cat. Sharp little fingernails that cat has. So what I did recently was make this beautiful Ikebana little flower arrangement of sterling silver Waterman pens in this sterling silver photo frame that someone was throwing out. It's one of these photo frames that have the little thing in the back here to hold it up on your desk. They work best when your desk is not tilted like this one. It would hold it at a more safe angle than this one is doing. Gravity gets in the way in this case. And I just wanted to show you kind of how I made it. Here's another such frame. And inside, you'd open it up like this, and inside here would be those little flippy. Okay, I've got them right here. Did I throw them out already? I probably threw them out already. Those little plastic sleeves that you put them in, and you can flip through and see the vacation with the grandchildren, and you can see the, what else do people do? These pieces of, let's just call them pieces of shit, are made really, really bad. These screws are, this is not made by a Switch watch company, a Swiss watch company. It was made by child laborers in some country. Korea. No, I don't know if they were child laborers. But anyway, there was these little flippy things here that you flip through, some over here that you flip through, but you can take this one out, and then you could put a real picture that doesn't flip right here, and there was a piece of glass here, and then you'd hang it on your desk next to the plastic flowers that also came from Korea or China, or maybe even the garden. Maybe they weren't plastic. And as you can see, this is when chrome was the coolest material that you could use to make picture frame photo albums out of. And it's just too shiny for me. So I got out my steel wool and tried to cut some of it off, buff it down to make it look like a lustraloy surface, and I may just throw the thing out, or I may try to do it better. So what I thought I could do on this one, because it also has this little boxy thing there, is I could, with my leather, am I sitting on it? Note to self, before you start making films, bring all of your pieces that you need in front of you. So you could, adhere these to the back of this, or you could put it on a piece of cardboard. I'm probably gonna, if I bother to even do this one, I'll probably cut a piece of cardboard out that replaces this that came out of there. So this is the size, and I would glue strips of leather, overlapping them to make pockets, and then glue that in. And, yeah, I'd probably just glue it in rather than using these little tabby things. And then in addition to this locks like this. It's not open, but let's say I have in my little display, my beautiful display, my beautiful bouquet, my ikebana of Lustraloy capped 51s. Let's say I had 6 of them that I wanted to show here, and maybe 2 or 3 levels of pocketry. It'd still be, there wouldn't be the glass there, so I could just, as I can do here, I can pull this right out and write with it. And I could do the same thing with the 51s or whatever is in my Lustraloy. This could be my Flighter ensemble. I could have my Flighter 61, my Flighter 51, my Flighter 45, for example. Wouldn't that look just so chic? And then you'd open the box. Oh, and there's more 51 Flighters. Or your pot stash, or whatever else you want to put in on your desk. Maybe you just have a pile of the photos that you pulled out of that thing, and you can look at your grandkids at the Disneyland before the China plague showed up, or after the China plague showed up. So these pens, as you can tell by the tarnish, are just as tidy and shiny and clean as the rest of me and my house, but I haven't used these in a while. Oh, by the way, you also see how this was one piece of leather that I just alternated the suede side and the leather side. I could have had it all suede or all leather, of course, but I wanted to, mix it up a bit. And I don't know if this is sterling or just silver. I think it is sterling. It doesn't say sterling, but it acts like sterling. It tarnishes like sterling. So I'm just going to call it sterling. So these sorts of frames you can probably find in any Goodwill. I mean, who uses these anymore? And the uglier they are, the cheaper they'll be. This might be $2.99 or something. Or you could probably buy one new for $2.99. Now, as you know from my earlier video, I went on a diatribe about do-it-yourself-ism and how you can take a perfectly good box of Crayola crayons and get out your hairdryer and take a perfectly good something else and melt the crayons all over it, and you have a really ugly whatever the thing you just made out of melted crayons was. Here I'm kind of doing the same thing. I'm taking what could have been a perfectly good frame that had flippy photo things in it, but I don't take flippy photos. Do you take flippy photos? No. So throw them away. Add to the carbon footprint by taking something out of the trash and putting it back in the trash, keeping the good part and turning this into something that's beauteous. And look what I can do. I could, let's say I'm in a different kind of a mood, and here's my vase of flowers could be made out of melted color crayons and an old Coke bottle. And I'm going to add just a little bit of red. Is that too red? That's too yellow or red. Ah, perfect. This one. You might think. Or you might say, I'm just going to stick with the sterling. But you can rearrange your display on your desk to suit the season or the mood or the needs of your pens. If it's tax time and you want to put your accountant pens in, and with your red ink and your whatever, you might, take all of these out that you use for your Valentine's Day era, your February, when you're trying to remember all of your ex's names to send them a nice little gift, a nice little card. You can arrange your display to suit those pens and that need. And then when February is over and you've got your Groundhog's Day to send out the Groundhog's Day cards to all your Groundhog's Day people, you'd put in the Groundhog's Day pens. Okay. And what's nice about this, as you can see, these things tip over like that. Well, gravity is an issue. Now I could have, tacked these in a little bit maybe every once in a while, but then they'd be tighter. And you'd pull out this, but only the cap would, where'd the nib go? Only the cap would come out. And you don't want that. So you want them to slide up and down, and if they tip over a little bit, that's just too bad. So, and one could even do something like this. Look at me. I'm thinking outside the box. You could even have it like this, where it goes out of the frame. You see, it's, where does the art stop? Is it only within the frame, or is it outside the frame? Is that how we're supposed to think about art these days, outside of the recontextualizing, whatever they say. So anyway, these pens, as you can see, are quite lovely, and I'm going to show you how they write, because I haven't used these pens in years. Per Gustafson. This is not an imposter. This is not a changeling. This is Per Gustafson that has had pens sitting in a drawer with beautiful nibs, and he hasn't taken them out for a drive. And I hate that. I hate having pens I don't use. I used to carry sterling silver pens with me all the time. I loved them. This one, as you can tell, is missing a clip. It's also missing a lever. What else is wrong with this pen, Jeff Berliner? It's screwed up. It's missing the little globe on the lever. It's missing the little clip on the cap. It's not a Waterman clip cap. It's a Waterman cap. Where's my ink? My kingdom for my ink. I don't know if you can hear my cat scratching in the cat box. Okay, I'm just dipping this in. Let's see, this is a Waterman 452. Boy, this has a gob of ink on it. Dr. John Stanford and Company. That's a funny name for a doctor. Dr. Stanford and Company. This is a very, you can't tell that, you can't feel that. It's a very springy nib. It's a little tighter than I expected. Oh, well, maybe it's just I didn't apply the gas in the right way or something. This is exactly sort of how I expect. Well, I used to expect. I now have, my eyes are more open, I guess, to the diversity of Waterman nibs. I used to, I think, if I saw a nib that I thought I didn't like, I didn't even try it. But now I learned to appreciate things like firm nibs, thank you Otto Yang, and accountant nibs, thank you the earlier, younger Pierre Gustafson, who used to love to draw with 6x0 rapidograph drawing pens. Now that I really try almost every nib I see. I think the only Waterman nib that is there any Waterman nib that I hate? I don't think so. Anyway, very nice, and I'm remembering now how nice it is with this weight that these Sterling overlay pens have. Okay, that one I tried. What about this one? This is a 412. So it's a slip cap. It has a early Waterman nib where the Waterman name is on a more circular parallelogram, not a tighter circle. This is going to be a flexible stub if it writes. This pen, if it worked, come on, ink, what's wrong with you today? Again, I haven't used this pen. This nib wants me to sort of write more vertically rather than more roundedly. See, this gets thicker because of the shape of the nib. It gets thicker up here faster than it did over here because the shape of the nib is stubbier. So its thinnest is only when it's going horizontal, whereas the other one could be thin really in any direction until I applied pressure. So for me, I just watched a beautiful video of a guy using I think it was a guy, it could have been a girl, a dame, could have been a dame, who was doing this beautiful calligraphy where it was sort of this chancery script kind of lettering. Except these lines were little squares because of the stub quill nib he made. He's writing with a peacock feather that was glued to the back of a dip pen. I know that sounds tacky, just like taking a photo album and gluing leather and sticking pens in it is tacky, but it looked good on him. And he made these beautiful arcs and curves, and except you could read what he wrote. It wasn't like this nonsense. But this makes this, if I were to normally write with this pen, I would sort of write more vertically and a little bit more angularly. This is the pen that, if Sharpies weren't invented, our present occupant of the White House would sign his name with a pen like this, because it makes you want to go up and down while destroying the Constitution. Okay, let's see. This is a pencil. No, that's a pencil. See? Whatever. What's this one? This is another Waterman. I don't know if this is a Sterling cap or a fine Sterling. This is very Art Nouveau. Swoopy lines. I don't know if this had a particular style name or not, but I think it's fine silver. I think these early ones were not sterling. No, it says sterling right there. Even I can see that with my tired eyes. Okay, this will be a very flexible, springy nib, I'm predicting. Yep, I was right. Zoom in. Come on, Pierre. This boing, 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 boing. These are the nibs that people would say are a wet noodle, and they'd say it goes from this to this, and they'd put it on eBay and get $1 million because of the range that it has. It's pretty sweet, as you can tell. It's a little, there's a little tiny bit of, what's the word do I want to use? It seems a little tiny bit fragile to me. You know, I look down and I almost expect to see cracks on the fuselage, cracks coming out from the breather hole, because sometimes you get pens that are very, very flexible and you realize they're flexible because there's a big old crack in it. And as we know, cracks do not get better. They only get worse. Well, they could stay exactly the same, but chances are they get worse. Now this pen here is the love child of this one, and maybe the first one I tried. It's takes a little bit more oomph to make it work. This was very weak and pliable, where this was melted butter. This is butter earlier that afternoon before the sun. It was still a hot day, so the butter was melting, but the sun hadn't hit it. This is after the sun hit the windowsill and the butter just started turning to melted butter. I want to go to a planet that's in the Goldilocks zone with the butter. I'm tired of these astronomy lectures or video, what are they? Astronomy programs that talk about the Goldilocks zone and liquid water. I want it to be about liquid butter. This planet is where butter exists both in all two states of solid and liquid. Melted butter. Okay, this one, what do you see about this one? What's wrong with this one, Jeff Berliner? I'm using him in vain, his name in vain, because he would always see me at a pen show, and it wasn't just me, I'm sure he said it to everyone. What's wrong with this pen? Meaning he didn't want to spend the time trying to find out what was wrong, he just wanted you to tell him. And then the dealer would say, the nib is really beautiful on this pen, Jeff. And he'd say, what's wrong with this pen? It's like when I was at a used car lot. How much is this? No, it was a regular car lot, a dealership. My ex-boyfriend was looking for a car, and he and I went, and there was a little car. I had money at the time, and I thought maybe I'd buy this used Volkswagen Bug. You know, one of the new Volkswagen Bugs. It was cute. It reminded me of my youth. And I said, how much is this? And he could not, I asked him, I don't know how many times I asked the guy how much it was. And he wanted to tell me about this, that, and the other, take it out on a drive. And I said, no, tell me how much it is. And I was screaming at him. How much is this car? And he wouldn't tell me. So if you're a secondhand car dealer, can you explain to me why that is? How difficult is it? Say what the price is. None of this take it on a fucking drive. I have $25 burning a hole in my pocket and I want to spend it. So let me know if the $25 is going to work, or whatever the amount of money is for whatever the thing is I want to buy. How much is it? Jeff Berliner, that's right. So what's wrong with this pen? Well, what's wrong with this pen is that this is a nickel clip, not a sterling clip. It was replaced with a more modern, I mean, not a more modern, but not a sterling clip. This nib is like the other sort of stub nib, flexible stub, another pen for our president to use in his memoirs. I was born, blah, 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 page 2, chapter 2. I was born, chapter 1, I was born on whatever the date is. Chapter 2, my daddy gave me $500 trillion. Chapter 3, this pen has a sterling clip. It says sterling right there, the top of that clip. Has initials on it. A something P. AWP, I think. This is a really sweet pen with this pen nib looks like it wrote the engraving initials. What are they again? A. The A goes like this. It has a downward, like that. A, W, something like that. And the R, it's an R, AWR. Or I don't know how it works. AWR. I just got ink. Look, my hands were clean. Where were we? Chapter. This is way too delicate a pen for any member of Trump's cabinet, or even any Republican to use. This belongs, yeah, you Republicans, you're right, this belongs to a snowflake. Very, very delicate. Poetic mind here. I imagine there might be some Republican that could have made that line. Graceful, thoughtful line. I don't mean to pick on Republicans so much, but it's so easy because of their embracement of this criminal. And then they couldn't say no. They had to say yes. Their backbone went away. What's wrong with this pen? Well, I'll tell you what's wrong with it. It has another wrong clip. This is a nickel clip. I don't know what it was used for back here, but this is all, it was probably, here's my thought. The person who owned this pen, oh, it doesn't have a nib. That's the other thing that's wrong with it. But the person that owned this pen also was a smoker. So he's smoking away, puts his cigarette in the ashtray. He takes his pen, he writes this, he puts down, the phone rings. Sell more stocks. And he puts this in the ashtray next to the burning end of his cigarette or cigar. And it just starts melting the hard rubber. And it's something he doesn't even know he did because he's too busy raking in the money. This pen is a 452.5, meaning it's skinny. And it has this little skinny nib that was made for this particular pen because it's really skinny. It's still a number 2 nib, but they made it thinner, and the side view of this has a tighter curve. This is almost weightless in one's hand. And it has a very broad nib. Now, I would probably, if I had a box of nibs that, let's say I had this many Waterman nibs. These are all gold nib pens that are all broken, cracked or missing their iridium or otherwise not functionable at the moment. And I would find a nib that would fit this pen that would be almost invisibly thin and maybe only just the slightest bit flexible, because this pen is so lightweight that it feels fragile. It isn't necessarily, but it feels that way. And it's like I would use this only, when would I use this? If this had the nib that I'm imagining it should have, where would I be? I feel that would I be at the opera? And I would be crossing out, I hate opera, but I have to go. And I'm crossing out every time something ends, I can cross it out and we can get closer and closer and closer to when the fat lady sings. And would I use it for that? Just to make one thin line? Would I use it to write that one brief note on the back of someone's calling card, giving them my answer in code? When you got a calling card back in the olden days, when they had such things, when they had a butler to bring it in to you, Madam, Mr. de Villiers left a card, and you would take the card off the thing and you'd bend a corner over. In there, the ways of bending a calling card spoke volumes of, here's Mr. de Villiers, Wentworth de Villiers III, the Brittany Hotel, or wherever he lived. And if Mrs. Park Street bent this corner up, that would mean one thing. And if she bent this corner down, that would mean another thing. And it would be brought back to Mr. de Villiers, who is still waiting for the response. Or it would be sent to him by some messenger. Or if Mrs. Park Street wanted never, ever, ever to see Mr. de Villiers ever again, she would bend this entire side over like that. I think that's how it worked. This is probably the rarest pen of the bunch. It's an eyedrop fill. Many of these were eyedrop fills, but this is an eyedrop fill screw section, screw cap. So this is a 4, 7, 2. That's a 4, 7 followed by 1, 2. Oh, I forgot the VP part, vest pocket. That's when people wore vests. And they'd have a big fat watch chain going from one end to the other, with a bigger and fatter watch in one pocket and the Phi Beta Kappa key and whatever hanging from the, the mounted grizzly bear claw on the other end of the watch fob. Here's the watch. And then here's the pen. The pen would be in the vest pocket. Probably not in the same pocket as the watch. Probably, now some of those vest pockets had way more than 2 pockets. They would have like 6 or 8. Back when men had to carry things like men's pockets became fewer and women's purses became bigger. Women's purses they were little tiny delicate things. Men had all the luggage. Women didn't have to have a key to the house or the safety deposit box or executive men's room. You had those in the man that you got married to. This pen is very sweet. And this nib, because it's this nib is almost perfect for this pen. It's sort of wet and flexible. Why is that perfect for this pen? I don't know. It just seemed right. Maybe the stub nib would work better in this short pen than the other one. Maybe that would work better. So now I'm done with my testing out the pens. Now I get to arrange them in my vase. So am I going to arrange them the same as I had them or do something a little different? Let's just do something different because I can't remember what the other one looked like. I'll put the short ones down on the bottom. But this little one is going to fall over, I just know. And if they fall over, it's fine. I did have some of them uncapped, but I'm going to keep them capped. They're falling over. I might have to put one tiny little tack in that. So what do you think? This can be on my desk. If my desk were a regular desk, could be aiming at me as I'm sitting at my desk, and I know now all of these pens by heart, so when I'm writing my letter to the editor, I'll know to take this pen. When I'm destroying another article of the Constitution, I'd take the Donald Trump fat pen and do it. Repealing this amendment and turning the clock back decades. Thank you very much. This bill will allow car manufacturers to make really awful, big, fat, ugly cars that pollute a lot more and use a lot more gasoline. Because it's good. It's making us great again. Just forget all about the patents. Explain, can anyone explain to me why? Just that one little bill. Let's make cars pollute. In what way was that helpful to anyone other than the gasoline company? Did it make the car have fewer parts so the car companies can make an extra dollar in the manufacturing of a car? And of course they'd charge $5,000 more for a car that uses more gas, because their ad campaign would somehow make it seem no regulations, no guarantee, no nothing, and people would flock to that dealership and buy another car. You'd ask how much this car was, and they would tell you, because you couldn't get, your money was good. They would sell that car to you, laughing all the way to the bank. Anyway, I'd like to know, in what way was taking that restriction off in any way beneficial to anyone other than a gasoline manufacturer? Okay, I can read one of your, as a physician dealing with respiratory diseases, I will not be put out of business as quickly because that's what you'd say. Okay, other than the respiratory doctors and the insurance companies no, I'd like to know just what, I'm being silly. I know, by including them. But if that's the real reason, if the drug companies and the respiratory doctor lobbyists teamed up with the oil producers, the gasoline producers, and said, how can we make ourselves more money? I know. Let's change that. We've got this buffoon in the White House that would sign anything we give him. So let's use this. Let's make this happen. Let's do it. I'm happier that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's really far away, but there's a light. You're happier. You're happier. Some people aren't happy, but they can go back to pulling legs off of spiders again, or whatever they did to have fun. I'm not saying all Republicans are evil, but it really, those that backed this person in the White House Bye.